My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path.
Ben is a licensed marital and family therapist. Ben is someone that I met, I'm guessing about 10 years ago. He was an intern in our office, and then I subsequently did his post-grad supervision with him. Ben is someone that can go deep, fast, loves to explore the depths of our psyche, and it is always enjoyable having a conversation with Ben. So I hope you enjoy our exploration today of his inner knowing and his journey. Well, hello, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm so glad to be here. This is really fun.
Good.
Yeah, I've been waiting my whole life for people to sit down and ask me what I think. So it's like,
today is the day.
Yes, it is. I went so far as to become a therapist, and then they taught me pretty early on, you just kind of listen a lot. You try not to say what you think all the time. I was like, no.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So when you think about inner knowing, as best as you can describe for us, what is that process like for you at this point in your life?
I think right now I'm pretty deep into the idea of my inner knowing coming from my self-awareness. And that has been a very long journey. Obviously, I think a handful of years ago, I just got under the impression that I really just didn't have the amount of freedom to choose my life the way that I wanted to.
Okay.
And so I, had already been through grad school, and I just knew there were blocks that I wasn't aware of.
Sure.
So I really set out to get to know myself a lot through going to therapy. But then there's so many things that are happening, in our lives as we're choosing something like that. But the best I can describe is that my inner knowing is really built on an awareness of myself, parts of myself that I was blind to for a very long time and still feel quite mysterious. But yeah, I'd say built on this awareness that I'm not just like one self, that there are lots of parts of me. And by getting more and more clear on that, I've found an inner knowing that feels very trustworthy, not perfectly so, but more and more that I kind of know where something's coming from, or at least can reflect on it in a way that I trust myself and trust what I might choose.
Yeah. When you talk about the parts of yourself, what comes to mind when you say that?
Well, I think we all learn what is acceptable in our lives.
Sure.
And some of that are things that we're really lucky somebody along the line showed us that's an acceptable part of you, and I want to be in relationship with that. And then there are other parts that we learn are not acceptable.
You had mentioned at the start of this path that you didn't have the freedom. And I was wondering if you could tell us more about that.
So I heard this model of psychological health that's really fit for me, especially kind of thinking about the parts of self that we can imagine ourselves as like a bicycle wheel. And we have a lot of different spokes. There's a part of us that wants to be and knows how to be nurturing. And there's a part of us that wants to be and knows how to fight for something. There's a part of us that wants to be happy and playful and silly. And there's another part that wants to be patient and choose like solitude and keep to ourselves. So there's a lot more than that. If you think about the spokes of a bicycle wheel. So getting to know the parts of myself has involved recognizing which spokes were kind of broken, like a part of myself that I didn't feel like I had a lot of access to. For example, saying no. I'm probably a lifelong recovering overcommitter.
Yeah.
A part of me that might have a boundary or like just a reality, a sense of reality of what I can and cannot do over the course of a week. So by mending and becoming more aware of those parts that were overfunctioning, taking up too much space on the wheel, kind of like making it oblong or kind of creating that kind of chunky roll of my life because I couldn't say no or something like that. I feel that I have more freedom to just have my life be in motion and to be really choosing and not trying to figure out why I can't get there, wherever that would be, whether it is in relationships, in my practice, with friendships, being healthy, things like that. Those are really the meat and potatoes of my life these days anyways. Yeah, that type of freedom has come from kind of a greater sense of all these different parts of me that now allow my life to feel like I can, keep rolling along and be moving in directions I want to go.
And that's what I was trying to get at is just we go along in our lives sometimes and think that it's all functioning well or okay enough. And then when you said I didn't have the freedom, it sounds like for you came from just exposure through graduate school and then stepping to work on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, certainly I would even say kind of began before that too. Just kind of some coming of age moments in my life where my path involved a lot of trial by error, just trial and error, just trying things out and then, figuring out that wasn't what it was all about. And then just at some point, just really choosing to be intentional with my life and then figuring out I needed to keep healing to be able to make all that happen.
In your decision making now, we've talked about fixing the spokes and getting a more round wheel so that rolling along. How do you check in with your inner knowing? What's that like for you? It's different for different people. So we're interested.
I think I've slowly and bit by bit become more aware when my body says, hold on. I'm in a normal flow of my daily, weekly life that I'm, pretty routine and aware of. And then something happens in a relationship so many times per day where my body's just like, wait a second. It's maybe more of like a flare up of like something's needs attention here. Whereas in the past that used to maybe get me to really start trying really hard. I think in an opposite way, I've actually learned to like slow down and try to kind of sink into something more patient that says, I'm going to find what I need. I don't need to like grab for the thing that I think I'm best at. I can just wait a second to figure out what just happened and why I, some little light bulb went off.
Learning to allow.
Say more about it.
Learning to allow, just taking that space to check in.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of immediately diving forward to get a result.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That is such a lot of effort goes into changing that response. I mean, I think about what I would call like our codependent response, right? Where it's like, I have to fix this somehow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very familiar.
Yes. Instead,
Teresa's got a big fix it thing that she's working on too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, my gosh, if I think how far that's come in 20 years. Whew. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very deliberate, intentional piece. And I mean, I feel like my kids have helped me the most because that realizing that by me responding to them that way, that I was actually taking competence away from them, right? That I was taking an opportunity for growth away from them, that I was telling them that I didn't trust them, that I was telling them that they weren't capable and competent. Then I was like, oh, yeah, that is not the message that I want them to receive at all.
So how many times do we have to learn that lesson?
Oh,
A million.
Yeah. The pendulum, right?
Yeah.
The thing that's most helpful, though, for me is actually my own work.
Oh, sure.
Because then you really realize there's nothing anyone can actually do to fix for me. And I think the more engaged with that I've been, it helps the allowing, the slow down of just wait a moment, because you might not need to jump in right now. And I think it's definitely hardest in my experiences, it's hardest in our most intimate relationships.
Sure.
There's just so much more there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Tell us more.
Well, I have a 11-month-old daughter that I'm,
and she's lovely.
She is. I'm crazy about her. And, the raising a baby and lack of sleep early on and the concerns about her, as well as, just differences in approaches, biological, probably natural, like, really strong bonding ties. And then, there's also my relationship with my wife, who I would love to make things better for more often than I can. And then you back off and she actually takes care of it herself. And it's like, oh, yeah. You do not need to jump in anytime it seems like I have a good idea. Okay.
Oh, I don't think that's common at all, Ben.
Right.
I think that's just a Ben issue, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm the only one.
The only one.
That's the dance.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a great way of putting it.
Yeah, thanks. It just strikes a real truth, right? It's a real chord.
Oh, absolutely. I think it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, allowing. Yeah. I mean, when I think about that, I just think about we're often trying to prove to our partner our value when we're really just taking value away from them.
Thank you. I needed that.
Yeah.
That's right. That's true.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I call that rescuing. Is it the same thing to you guys?
Oh, I think to a degree. I think rescuing is a big word that we could, spend 6 hours talking about, maybe longer, but.
Let's go.
Right. We got to finish Ben's interview. Talk about rescuing.
Well, I have two experts here. I can ask all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. No, I think there is a rescuing aspect to that. It's really about us. It's really not about the other person. It's really about us needing to find our own value, right? It's just that we often do it to the detriment of somebody else, right? But that's not what we're telling ourselves.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Finding our own values, like often proving a wound wrong.
Yeah.
That maybe not feeling heard in some different parts of our lives where we really saw something.
Yeah.
I was right then. And that can, especially about the normal things I think that every family has, some blind spots, and you can kind of grow up a lot of your life pretty aware, not with great words for it, but just with that physical sensation of something's not right about this. And so then we can think, we can start creating narratives about what should have happened and needed to happen, kind of to make sense of something hard. So then when something seems like it needs to happen, there's a part of us that feels really desperate to be heard because we weren't heard back then.
Sure.
And so, yeah, if you listen to me now about this problem,
Right.
then all of that will have been okay.
Right.
That's all, underground.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My goodness.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. Our subconscious.
Mhm.
Yeah. We're just still trying to figure out how to get our needs met.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we're so complex.
I guess that's why Don Miguel Ruiz says it's not personal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
Fascinating.
yeah. But it feels so personal. Mm. So, you mentioned earlier, what prompted you starting graduate school?
Well, I grew up in a really religious setting,
Mhm.
and there certainly were different people that had a version of that I think is healthy and can be really helpful for people's lives.
Yeah.
But when you're inundated in it the way I was, it did not feel healthy. So, I kind of kept that going despite not feeling that way at all for a very long time. And then, I kind of decided to go the other way.
Okay.
Mostly just with pursuing whatever seemed fun and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful I traveled a lot. Going the other way of religion for me didn't mean, becoming harmful.
Uh-huh.
It meant these things that I've heard were wrong or something maybe deserved a little experimentation. But it didn't take that long, thank God. But 4 or 5 years in my 20s of really just having as much fun and going to lots of concerts and hanging with my friends and drinking plenty. And I just was like, this is not it. It just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so at 27, I had just a really great moment. When I was in New York, I was wandering around really early, just kind of doing what I call a ramble from Winnie the Pooh, just going out with no intention, wandering around, seeing what was happening.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
And, just kind of wherever my eye was taking me and wandering. This was actually on January 1st.
Wow. Okay.
It was early.
Uh-huh.
And because the party that I'd been to the night before had been quite disappointing, even in Brooklyn.
Oh.
It's like, it's just not working for me. So I'd gotten up early and I saw this guy hustle past me on a crosswalk with what looked like blueprints rolled up under his arms and a briefcase.
Uh-huh.
And I had already been kind of just wandering around, just so inspired by the architecture. And I just was like, where is he going? It's New Year's Day, early in the morning, and he's hustling off. I was like, he must like what he does. He must have something that he cares about to be working like this on a holiday or hustling like that. And I was like, well, what do I care about? Like, what do I want? And it just was about, it was a day-long walk. I just kind of kept going. And at some point I was just like, people. I love people. That's what I care about. I want to help people.
Yeah.
And, didn't take too long before I was just like, I think I'd actually like to be a therapist. I'd like to learn how to really help people with some of the things that are really hard. And I've always been geared towards inner world, my own inner world.
Yeah.
I've lived there a lot, too much. That's part of the bicycle wheel. I'm trying to, continue to have the spokes, be outside world taking care of businessy things because I can really just ponder.
Sure.
So that was it. And then I was enrolled in graduate school and went 6 months later.
Wow.
January 1st, that was a big day.
It was.
Yeah.
And so as you're walking, this all day long walk, how are you checking in? I mean, it's, if we step back, we're looking for that piece. I mean, how did you know I'm right about this?
It is an interesting example because I would say most of the growth in my inner knowing is just on a micro scale, just bit by bit by bit by bit. I think that's the way that it mostly happens. But this going to graduate school thing really felt like the only epiphany I've ever had in my life. I mean, it wasn't all in one big wave that washed over me, but I was alive. I was feeling. There's a funny little joke that the greatest race dog in the world retired one day, and everybody, all the other greyhounds came around. They were like, "Wow, why'd you retire?" And he was like, "Well, I ran so fast one day, I caught up to the rabbit, and I bit it. The rabbit's dead, guys." The rabbit's dead. It's not real. And that's what that day in Brooklyn was. It was like, oh, here's this really cool warehouse party that apparently like cool people go to. And I'm so bored. I don't care. And it was just kind of like the death of that made room for me to kind of come alive on the other side.
Mm.
So where do you feel it in your body when you feel alive? You say that.
That is a great question. I'm a pretty energetic person, so I think I just felt a harmony of energy really kind of radiating all through my body that day. But in terms of kind of the bit by bit growth that I was talking about, I actually think it's a similar experience on and off that often kind of comes after grieving, I think, something. Recognizing that something is not real, that I've lived like is real for a very long time. Recognizing, a part of myself or, something, isn't real.
Yeah.
A judgment of myself, some story I've told about my inadequacy for a very long time, and you realize how long you've said that to yourself, and it's like, oh. Man, that is sad to think how much I have didn't necessarily choose to think that about myself, but that's the direction I went. And God, it's been hard living under that. And so you grieve that a bit, and then on the other side, you're like, whew, I feel a little bit of this like kind of life force flowing in from this place that was dammed up for a while. And
sure,
I kind of love that feeling, where all of a sudden my energy is flowing in a way that I know I've worked through something, and never permanent, but in a way that does equal progress.
Sure.
Yeah. When you think about the different influences since you made the choice to go to graduate school, what are the things that you feel like have been supportive of you on the journey since then?
Well, my parents. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful. I've realized this actually over and over, especially as an adult, but that they just haven't stopped trying. And that, has been enormous. But one of the biggest things, I was pretty scared. Actually, after grad school, I didn't start my practice for a year and a half. Okay. I went back to the same job, and I think that's actually the only. I'm prone to anxiety, not depression as much. I think that's the only time in my life I've ever had what was probably a pretty clinical depression. I just was scared, and it's kind of what I was referencing earlier when I was saying I just knew I didn't have the freedom. I'm like, oh my goodness, I loved grad school. I loved being an intern and meeting with people. I really liked it. I was so excited, and I have just stopped. And so I went to therapy myself weekly, actually multiple times a week for 3 years as I was starting my practice. This might, maybe could have been an answer to your original question about what inner knowing looks like now. What I took away from that long, intensive therapy journey was two kind of main thoughts. One, that I really did trust myself now, that I had faith and that I could throw the sails up and that I could get there. And I wasn't, still don't know what port I'm going to end up in, or, I have a better idea of, the routes I'm setting down, but life still feels very much like a ocean crossing on and off, but I had a real faith in myself. I knew I could do it. And then the other one that is the answer to your question is I also had this strong recognition that life is hard and I need help. And that is okay. That is like the most normal thing ever, to need help. To think that I would have all the gifts is crazy, but it's really childish. It's the inner child that thinks I should. And I was like, I just need to learn to ask people for help. But as I was going through that therapy process, I started getting so much more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And recognizing the people in my life that I was close to, that I could trust to ask questions about things I wasn't as good at or needed help with. And so learning to ask for help, if 3 years and 3 months in therapy, if that was the only thing I ever learned, it would be as good a life lesson as anything. It's been amazing to have access to. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can somebody who knows something help me? And teach me too, right? Like I don't, want to be dependent on, the people that are good at things, but all that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm taking this class right now about the Enneagram, which I took my first class about 15 years ago. And the one I'm doing right now is with Russ Hudson. And it was interesting. The very first time that we met, he said, there is one thing true about every type on the Enneagram. They all struggle to ask for help. And I was like, oh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just helpful, right? To be aware of that is such a difficult thing for us to do. Yeah.
And then the kind of getting to know myself, I've really recognized the parts that are more and more resistant to that.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's the place we think we're really skilled.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep. Don't need help. Yep. I'm good. Yeah.
Not everybody has a really strong support network to be able to go ask for help.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So are you talking about friends and family or I don't know how you build up that support network.
Yeah. I'd say, frankly, honestly, though, it is kind of small other than professionally.
Sure.
But close friends, close family. Yeah.
It's interesting just in listening to you, it's bringing up in me is that balance between I can trust myself, I can trust my inner knowing, and I need to ask for help. How do you balance the two?
Thank you. Great question. Well, I don't always.
Sure.
I'm pretty stubborn. But somehow the part that trusts myself and believes in myself is really, I'm going to kind of say the same thing probably, but it's like strong enough to take risk, if that makes sense. Like I wouldn't feel that I have faith in myself if I didn't have some kind of connection to feeling powerful enough for life. And if I'm that way, then it's not so scary to ask for help. They really feel married, and I'm not sure I have the right words for them.
Interesting. It's just like Teresa was talking. I've got a good friend who's got great experience. He's an incredible attorney. And I'll turn to him sometimes, hey, will you read this demand letter or that sort of thing? And, it's to me, I have this struggle between asking for that help and like, hey, I know well enough to do it. And a lot of times what he gives me isn't where I go anyway.
Right.
So,
and that's a good point. It's by breaking up a little bit with codependence that it's like, I could ask for help. And if you say something that really doesn't feel like me, I'm just going to say, well, thanks.
Sure.
That's a good idea. Probably not what I'm going to do, but maybe I'll think about that if this doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I think it was interesting. I like, Ben, what you said about breaking up with codependence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that if we're going towards like that, a particular situation like that, right? If we're going towards it in a way that we are seeking perspective as opposed to seeking an answer, right? Like I just want feedback. I want another perspective. I want a lens that isn't as developed in me, right? Mm-hmm. But then it's like, oh, okay, well that doesn't really resonate, right? Mm-hmm. But okay. And it's not dismissive, right? It's just there is a part of me that knows that what I'm choosing is more congruent. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As opposed to, oh, that person or that place or that whatever has the answer, right?
Right.
And that I should do that because they are, I don't know, however we value them as more than we value ourselves.
Sure.
It's like, did they just shine a light in a corner and I'm like, oh yeah, I hadn't looked over there.
Right.
Or are they like, you should go down the hall. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to go down the hall.
Right.
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 I'm in this room. I know I'm in this room. I'm just not sure what
to do. You talked about throwing up the sails, and my grandparents had a sailboat. We had this experience once where he sold it shortly thereafter, but we were trying to take off and he hadn't put down the keel. Oh. And so the boat was just sliding all over the marina. Uh-huh. And finally I was like, don't we put down the keel? Uh-huh. And so I always imagine dropping the keel when I'm feeling uncharted. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's just as like, I can sail through these waters too. Mm-hmm. All I need is drop the keel. It's just something I have been visually putting into play when I'm not sure what direction to go.
Right.
So I think it's a process of checking it too at the same time. I find this like, I don't know, I have different experiences with my inner knowing, sometimes when like, oh yeah, this is absolutely, then it's like runs up and down my spine. But since it's like that, it's a calmness. Like it's going to be okay. I'm going to make a decision and I'll go with it, whatever comes. Right. So, fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the question that you were asking, that balance between our inner knowing and, asking for help I think it's just hard. And I do think there's so much that feeds into it. I mean, I know we're not hitting all of the parts of it today. So I don't want people to think that this is a simple thing, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of ways we can ask for help. For me, I just think about, are we asking for help, for support to learn to grow? Or are we asking for help because we feel less than? I mean, I just think the energy around that process is not the same.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's funny just because I'm a pretty good lawyer and I'll have insecurity, right?
Sure.
And so I know that the initial call comes from insecurity, but then in the process, I'll make my own decision. It's so complex, as Teresa says.
Yeah.
So, Ben, resources, books, authors, mentors, things that have been important to you along the way.
Well, Teresa Hubbard, high on the list for me.
Yay, Teresa.
I met you 10 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like this month, probably.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. I interned here. It must have been probably in March or April when you kind of start getting placements.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, we've met regularly a lot.
I did, yeah.
In 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
And you've been an elder for me.
Thank you.
In a culture that I think that is sorely missing. So I've been, I might be changing the topic a little bit, but I'm pretty interested in trying to facilitate how we're going to grow some eldership in our culture. Absolutely. To make eldership like accessible to people.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a book that came out a few years ago called The Third Age And that's what it's encouraging is for people who finish their career to then step into this role really that serves, our society, right? And maybe you have something to offer. I mean, you probably have something to offer. Maybe you don't realize what you have to offer, but yeah, encouraging that.
And our culture is crazy in terms of the resistance to that. It's wild. This individualism is like, good heavens, we just really, it's the should. We just should be able to do it all.
Right.
Why? And, not really.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
Resources, though, I really just do enjoy psychology study generally. Not only in-depth psychology, although that's my primary field that I really enjoy, is like very weird language, object relations theory stuff. But I've really been enjoying studying Jungian theory and different Jungian analysts and archetypes and the way that myths carry ancient wisdom. And it's really remarkable the amount of like wisdom tradition that has been gathered.
Sure.
That's been a passion of mine a lot here lately is reading into like different archetypal stories.
Let me dig in a little bit on that. You had sent me an invite to join a group that was doing a book study. So busy, not able to do it, unfortunately, but I think that's what you're talking about. So tell us more about archetypes.
Yeah. So that book study is something that's come out of having kind of had my hands in the soil of that topic for several years. And
what's the book?
The book is called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Rediscovering the Mature Masculine.
Sure. Okay.
And I am pretty passionate about creating space for men to explore what it means to be a healthy, mature man in the world. The author of that book uses the word maturity a lot, and that's really stuck with me. It's a word that I feel is a little unpopular. Everybody kind of wants to assume that they're mature.
Yes.
And
of course.
And it's a reduced way of viewing the deep psyche, frankly. But I think that we've really lost our way in terms of what people are really taught, even from college, if they ever even took a psychology class, to kind of just the pop psych out there. There's just all this on the surface stuff. It's labels. It's intellectual insight without the teaching that you need real experiential insight in your body. It's boats without a keel. Freud said that he was the third blow to humanity. The first was Galileo. We're not the center of the universe. The second was Darwin. We're not so separate from the animal kingdom as we wish we were. And he was the third, that we're not really the masters of our own house. There's all these forces going on underneath that are really guiding our decisions until we become aware of them. So the study I'm doing, I'm hoping is both a way for men to be kind of like checking in and learning, some ways of having light bulbs go off about their own maturity and some like shadow parts that I think are pretty common.
Sure.
But also is kind of a door to, hey, you're really deep. There's a lot, like you do actually have like things that are really running your life without you being totally aware. And so I'm hoping that it's kind of a gateway to a deeper awareness of what mental health looks like, actually.
Sure.
Yeah. I've not yet met someone who didn't have depth, regardless of the stories that are out there about it. Yeah. Yeah. I just think that it's often, if they feel that it hasn't been explored, allowed, whatever, their story is. They just don't even know. Yeah. Interesting. I appreciate your sharing about Freud too. I wasn't aware of that, perspective.
Well, what's great about the quote is, people still kind of think that we're the center of the universe, and people still kind of think that we're not related to animals at all, so it's like a little relieving from like, come on, believe in the subconscious. It's like, well, these things are hard to, believe. We want to be the center. We want to think we know it all.
Yeah, we do. We do. Yeah.
Masters of our own house.
Yeah. No, I met someone once who, very, I would say in that self-intellectualization lens said, I don't have a subconscious. I am aware of everything. And I was like, ooh, fascinating. Yeah. Oh, that would be exhausting.
Yeah.
Oh, it would be hard to live aware of everything.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So when you think, Ben, for you, like on the daily, when you have a need, when you are aware that you are not grounded, you're not where you want to be or who you want to be, what are some things that you try to help yourself find yourself again?
Well, one question I ask myself a lot, because I'm also a recovering comfort seeker, is, am I telling myself I'm out of stamina when I have plenty more in the tank? I just don't want to anymore. So for me, that is like a quick question of like, I'm not doing good. I need something. It's like, hold on. Do I? Am I okay, actually? But I really want to be done working on something or trying. I just want to be done trying for a while. I want to sit down.
Sure.
I get that.
Yeah. If I sat down as much as I wanted to, that old bicycle wheeling and rolling much. So that's one thing. But then it really is just my body. I walk through my neighborhood. It just a lot of big trees, really neat area of town. I go for at least one long walk a day. Most days, 2 walks with an average of 30-ish minutes or so.
Yeah.
So being outside, oh my goodness. Because we've got this idea that like seeing the sunrise and seeing the sunset is not only really lovely way to like remember we just had a day of our lives, but it also kind of helps sleep train. And we've got this baby. We do that really frequently for sunrise-ish and sunset-ish times. And over, I'm like, we travel all over the world for beauty. And it's like, wow, look at this sunset. And it's amazing in Florida or,
wherever,
the Rockies or whatever. There are a lot of epic sunsets going on.
Right
in Missouri.
Yeah.
There are great just moments of like, wow. So being outside, I've, continued to recognize that walking specifically, where I'm not even trying to exercise. I do really benefit from exercise. I feel very frequently, if I can do 20 minutes, just 20 minutes of anything, stretching, or something like I do, like, when I'm feeling a little feisty, I'm like, I need to go push something around that's a little heavy, but one of my main practices actually is the sauna.
Oh, okay.
I really love the sauna, and I do a lot of guided meditation in the sauna. And man, just pounding liquids and replacing them. And there's all kinds of people talking about all the sciences of it. But I've found that it's a really nice way to just really relax. My body just really starts relaxing. Yeah, it's just been super beneficial, like routine in my life when I'm like, I am too stressed or I do need something right now. The sauna's been a really nice one here in the last handful of years.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Learning to take care of ourselves. I mean, just
oh yes,
check in with that body and let it know.
Yeah.
I think there's an old cowboy saying that's like, feed your horse first.
Yeah.
Because you drive the cattle all day, and if you eat the beans by the fire, you might just fall asleep. And then you wake up the next day and you're trying to drive the cattle, and that horse is like, I didn't eat.
Oh.
I'm not cooperating with you. That's kind of axiom in my mind. I need to feed the horse here. My body needs something.
Yes.
So I had this experience last week. I go to a local park and take the dog out into the woods, and we walk. And anyway, we were coming back in, and I decided, got out of the woods and into a more grassy area, which is close to the parking lot. It was a nice evening, blue sky. I just laid down like I was a kid, dogs laying next to me. I'm looking up at the blue sky, and that just touching the earth that way really was settling, energizing, all of that. And here's what's so funny about it. I was a little self-conscious, I wouldn't have been as a kid, right? Like whatever, you just do whatever you want. And I should be more like that. Anyway, I was that day. And then I sat up, and another guy had sat down with his dog, maybe about 30 yards away.
There you go.
And he was laying on his back, looking up at the sky. And it was there were some women on a park bench, and, they're looking or whatever. And then here's this guy next to me doing the same thing. And I was like, that's really cool. Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting when you say that. I think, why do we need permission?
Yeah.
Right. To take care of ourselves. Why can't we just take care of ourselves? I mean, in our culture, I think there's you're weird, or there's something, there's something wrong with you. You're lazy or whatever. But, for years I've recommended people walk barefoot in the grass, and how often people are like, well, what will my neighbors think? And I was like, I don't know. What will your neighbors think if you walk barefoot in the grass? But we are taught to be so worried about what other people think about our process. It's hard for us. We don't have the freedom. So maybe you gave him permission, babe. I don't know.
Oh, I think I did.
Yeah.
Which I just thought it was just lovely. So anyway, but that's lovely. Similar to the different physical activities that you're talking about. Just, it was great for me. So, but I'll have to try the other stuff. When you push something heavy, what's that?
Like weights. Like lifting weights.
Oh, I see. Sure.
Actually, my favorite thing at the gym is like this sled. Just like put some weights on it and just push it and then pull it back and forth for like 15 minutes. Like, I'm sure. Now I'm just like driving home like, I am ready to go in and be who I want to be.
Yeah.
Nice.
Releasing excess energy. Yeah. Get your body cleaned out.
Yeah. I got to start doing more of that. And I know, Ben, that I should. And then I fall back into the old patterns, got to stay at it.
Yeah, I do.
I sit at my desk long enough. It's hard to stand up these days sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, those shoulds and supposed tos. Yeah. It is the best, we could do. Have the awareness, continue to train ourselves. Yeah.
Go back. There was a phrase you used, and I closed my eyes because it was just so beautiful. We were talking about magnificent. I can't remember if you said magnificent sunsets. What was the word you used?
Well, you are asking the wrong guy.
No, it was seriously. It was like a book title. It was like Magnificent Sunsets, right where you are, and it was it really resonated with me.
It's really true. Kind of what I was thinking when you were talking about laying on your back and the calming. I think it's kind of hard to get a sense of awe indoors.
Agreed. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Nice point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It calms you down, calm down. The trees are blowing. It's really pretty. It's just like, this is a big old thing we're all part of.
Whole body sensory experience.
Yeah. Well, it brings you present. You're watching instead of analyzing.
That's right.
And
the mindfulness is very easy outdoors.
Exactly. Yeah.
My daughter's obsessed with birds right now. And in the morning, now it's springtime, chirping like crazy. Once you're like trying to find a bird for her, you realize like they're going nuts every morning.
Yeah.
And man, is it calming to be listening to the birds. It is so simple.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, it is a really nice start to the day.
Yeah, I agree. I love listening to birds, but mine is frogs. Yeah. I love hearing frogs.
So there's something also grounding about your daughter's 11 months or thereabouts, just, I don't know what your routine is to listen to the birds with her in the morning, but you're holding her or she's on the floor, but sharing that space, the present space together and taking in the wonder, right?
Absolutely.
That she's experiencing it's a really nice addition to the toolbox, right?
Yeah. I'm really hoping, and I believe I can and will, but I really am setting an intention to allow her to keep teaching me.
Yes, always. Oh, well, thank you so much, Ben.
Absolutely. This has been a joy.
Yeah. We appreciate your sharing and your time away from your family.
Yeah.
And your wisdom and insight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.